The Omicron variant is dashing some Christmas plans worldwide, and the place where it all began is no exception. For the second straight year, the Israeli government has largely barred outside tourists from Bethlehem and the Christian quarter of the Old City in Jerusalem due to COVID-19. Not only have travel restrictions delayed part of the holiday spirit, it's also impacting the local economy. CBS News foreign correspondent Ian Lee takes a look at how Christmas is being observed there and around the world.
It's Christmas time all over the world. And the spirit is real in Bethlehem. Palestinian Christians paraded in front of the Church of the Nativity, where tradition holds that Jesus was born. And at the Vatican, Pope Francis urged people to be humble this holiday season. Earlier today, the snow was thick as the man in red also gave a Christmas message before his big night.
Now it is time to turn these worries into plenty of goodwill. Let's give time to children and young people and do something together.
Santa stopped off in Paris to swim with the fish before heading down to Brazil to deliver 300,000 meals to people in need. But there are concerns COVID will play a Grinch again this Christmas. Here in the UK, Prime Minister Boris Johnson used his annual holiday message to urge everyone to get vaccinated.
Getting jabbed, not just for themselves, for ourselves, but for friends and family and everyone we meet. And that, after all, is the teaching of Jesus Christ.
In Thailand, Santa's helpers swapped reindeer for elephants to deliver hand sanitizer and masks to children. And in Spain, there's a holiday rush to get tested for COVID to give folks peace of mind when visiting family during the season of peace. Ian Lee, CBS News, London.
And to discuss what's happening in Bethlehem, we want to bring in CBS News radio correspondent Robert Berger. Robert, great to see you. How are people in Bethlehem celebrating the Christmas season despite the pandemic?
Well, you have the traditional celebrations going on. It began with Palestinian Boy and Girl Scouts in a very colorful parade in Bethlehem, marching through Manger Square with drums and bagpipes. And then you have the more solemn celebrations at the Church of the Nativity, which is built above the grotto, where tradition says Jesus was born. This is highlighted by midnight mass, but what's missing this year is the pilgrims. Normally you have thousands of pilgrims coming to Bethlehem to celebrate Christmas from all over the world, but there aren't any pilgrims this year because of the pandemic, and Israel has closed its borders to tourists. So, usually you have international choirs from all over the world, including the United States. That's all been canceled. And so the festive atmosphere of a normal Christmas is just, it's not there. It's a gloomy Christmas in Bethlehem.
So how has the drop in tourism affected Palestinians in the West Bank?
Well, the Palestinian economy in the West Bank depends entirely on tourism. Normally you have hundreds of thousands of visitors every year to Bethlehem, and at this time of year in particular. But hundreds of hotel rooms in Bethlehem are now empty. The shops, restaurants, all empty. Bethlehem is something of a ghost town. So it's really a blow to the local Palestinians in Bethlehem. And over the past many decades, you've had periods of violence that have kept pilgrims away. You've had hard times, but inevitably followed by periods of calm. What's different about the pandemic is that you just don't know what's going to happen. Israel reopened its borders back in November and now closed them in December. So I'd say describe the mood among Palestinians as one of uncertainty and despair.
So in that same mind, Israel overall and its fight against COVID-19, what can you tell us about travel restrictions there and how the country has dealt with the pandemic this past year?
As I said, the borders are totally closed to foreigners. No foreign tourists can enter Israel right now. Israelis can come back, but they have to go into quarantine. So basically the country is closed off, and that's a huge blow to tourism. Back a couple of years ago, Israel had 4.5 million tourists come. This year, only 200,000 have come for the entire year. So also a big blow to the Israeli economy. And so basically, on the other hand, everything in Israel is open. There's no lockdown. Israel has a very high vaccination rate, one of the highest in the world. But you do need a green passport to go to places like restaurants and sporting events and so on. But the country internally is open, but outside of the country, anything coming in from outside is closed. For instance, if I want to travel to the United States right now, I can't without special permission from a government agency. So basically, Israel has shut itself off from the outside world to try and prevent the spread of the Omicron variant.
In addition to that high vaccination rate that you spoke about, Israeli officials say they're planning to administer a fourth coronavirus vaccine dose as Omicron continues to spread. What have we learned about this new effort?
Israel is actually the first country that's going to offer a fourth dose of either the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine. Israel was also the first country to offer a third dose, and the rest of the world followed suit. So people over 60 or health care workers or people with compromised immune systems would be able to get the fourth dose if it's actually finally approved. But unlike the third dose, there's a lot of controversy now about the fourth. Both here in Israel and abroad, critics are wondering if Israel has kind of jumped the gun here because it's not based on any kind of clinical trials or tests, the fourth dose. And also the Omicron variant is looking like it's a lot less lethal than the Delta or the original coronavirus. So I think the Israelis are planning to do this out of an abundance of caution, but we have to wait and see a little bit if it's actually implemented.
Well, thank you for breaking all of this down. We'll continue to watch. Robert Berger.
Thank you.